I'll put together a big bowl and I'll make
Hello, hello, hello. Come on in.
see you guys next time. Bye.
I am so glad you're here. And we're going to have fun this morning. As you can see, the kitchen is a mess. And that is always so much fun to get your kitchen messy. And I've been watching Denise and watching her cook this morning. And you know what? We have put many conversations and lots and lots of giggles together in trying to plan what we were going to do today. And you know, I was telling her the other day that I was so looking forward to today. It was going to be great, and that I giggled when she was practicing. If you all did not get a chance to watch her practice over on Instagram, you have got to go watch it. Good morning, good morning. And I'm so glad everyone is here. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hello, hello. And we're just going to get started. There is a lot to do. And today, I'm going to start with I'm going to be working back and forth, so you know I'm going to take you with me. So just pull up a seat and let's get ready to work because it's going to be a great time. I decided that one of the things that I was going to use for the freezer was going to be some banana bread. Oh, this is the time to prepare your banana bread and have it ready. You can have some to eat now and some that you can put in the freezer. So we're going to put a banana bread together that's going to come together so fast you're going to go, oh my goodness, that really was fast. Now, I had to keep recipes out, so you know I got my planner here to make sure I don't mess up. Now, when I'm over there at the stove, I can kind of play and make adjustments, but you know, when we're handling baking, we need to be pretty exact, you know? So what I have in this bowl is 3.5 cups of self-rising flour. And I'm using self-rising because, well, number one, that's what I had. And number two, because it already has the baking soda in it and already has salt in it. So I don't have to add any of that. And this particular banana bread, we're not even going to need a mixer. That's how good it's going to be. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I want you to see this bowl. And you're thinking, oh my gosh, what is swimming in this bowl? Now, take a look. Not very appetizing to look at at all. But I have in this bowl 6 frozen and thawed bananas, because when our bananas get a little past their prime, you know how they'll turn black. Well, I take them, put them in the freezer in a Ziploc bag. And so what I'm doing is that I'm squeezing all the essence out of the peel. Now, what I've done is that I've kept the peel here. And of course, that really doesn't look appetizing at all, but you need to know what it is. This is the peeling that came off the bananas. And what I'm going to do is that I'm going to blend it and I'm going to pour it into my flower pots as a liquid. And what that does is just perks up your flowers. And even if your flowers are at that point where they're kind of starting to droop, maybe, depending on your weather, where you are, but you're going to be able to still enrich the soil with the bananas. I use bananas all the time, bananas and coffee, bananas and coffee. Now, so let's get in here. I've got my little blender now, and I'm telling you, the good thing about this is that you really don't have to do a lot to the bananas. You just kind of take something and just kind of mush them up a little bit, and that's what we're doing. And yes, they're going to be a little juicy. That's all right. Now, in here, I'm going to put in 4 eggs. So let's make sure you can see. I'm going to crack 4 eggs. And I'm gonna be careful to make sure I don't get any shells in there this morning. And the shells are gonna go in with the bananas. So we'll get going here. Here's 2. Here's number 3. And we got number 4. All right, so we've got 6 bananas, frozen and thawed. We've got 4 eggs, and we're gonna beat this up really good. And notice, no mixer necessary. I am giving all of this a really good stir in my bowl. It smells wonderful. And of course, you can tell it starts to look a little better as time goes by as well. Thank you, Denise, so much. All right, so we are working it today. Okay, also in here, I'm going to add 1 cup of brown sugar. Now, even though the bananas are pretty sweet, and especially since they've been sitting, in the freezer and they were already overripe, but we're going to give all of that a good stir. And I'm doing the banana bread first because I only have 1 dish to cook this in. And I recognize I could have put it in my 9 by 13 and cut squares, but I like when it's in a little loaf dish. So that's the reason. So I'll just have to run more than 1. That's okay. The oven is already on 350. And so all of our brown sugar is in there. And you want to stir it until you cannot hear any of the sugar on the bottom. Now, the next thing we're going to add is I've got a cup of softened butter. So this is probably going to be the hardest part of this entire recipe to bring together. Let me get a spatula. And hope you guys have had fun watching Denise. Denise, I tell you what, you put Julia Childs to shame, girl. You were cooking it up over there in that kitchen. Man, you had 2 freezer meals. Oh my goodness. You just went whole hog, girl. And she was having a good time in that kitchen. So we've got our butter in here. So I'm going to take this, going to give it a little chop first. And then we're going to give that a really good stir. There we go. Get that all mixed up. Now, there's one little part of let me get a spoon, a little piece of the banana. I think he's fine, but he just doesn't look that great. So we better take him out. Just the end, I think, of the banana. Okay, so we've got our butter, we've got our sugars, we've got our eggs, and our bananas in here. Okay, so we need some flavoring. So this is where we're going to bring in, I want some cinnamon, and I'm opening this up. Let's see, I think I have my teaspoon. Okay, I'm gonna sprinkle that in. And this little spoon actually measures out 2 teaspoons. So this is 2 teaspoons. And if you're a cinnamon person, and once you get this stirred and you start to smell it and it smells good, if you think you need a little extra cinnamon, then that is certainly up to you. You know your family better than I do. Now, my family likes cinnamon, but I don't like to overdo it. I do like it, but just don't want to overdo it. Okay, now, so I like just a little bit of nutmeg. Oh, it always smells so good, but nutmeg you have to be careful with because you don't want too much. So I am adding in, and these spoons are not the easiest thing to see. Okay, they call it a dash, and that's exactly what we're going to put in, a dash of nutmeg. All right, we got our dash of nutmeg to go in. We just want that little hint in the background. So let me continue with that. And yes, I'm dropping. So I got that. Oh, that smells great. All right. Now, I think I have enough cinnamon. I have my nutmeg, and I like vanilla in mine. So let me see how much I have in this bottle. I actually have 2 bottles of vanilla today because I wasn't really sure how much I had in this bottle. And you know what? I almost had 2 teaspoons. So we're going to add that vanilla in. Now, because I'm thinking we're going to use this little loaf dish probably at least twice, let me give this a good stir. And we may add just a smidget more. I cook by smelling, does it smell the way I want it? And I think I want just a tad bit more. So I'm going to get this bowl out, and we're going to add just a little more. Now, over there on the stove, I've got bacon that is getting ready for what we're going to be preparing in just a little while. And it is going to be so good. And we're going to eat part, and we're going to freeze part, because it's going to be a soup. And I wanted, this does not want to come out this morning. There we go. All right. So use what we need. All right. So we've got, I'm going to put just half of this in. So I'll just say I used 3 teaspoons, and I'll have all this written down below. 3 teaspoons of vanilla, and you're using pure vanilla extract. Now you can use whatever brand you like. That is certainly up to you. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's the smell I want. It just needed a little bit more. All right. So I have my 3½ cups of flour, and I'm just going to start adding it in, taking my time a little bit, giving it time to sprinkling about 1/3 of it, give it a good stir, because like I said, we're going to do all of this, and we are not going to take out the mixer. We're going to do this all by hand. And this is so good because, when you're a young homemaker and a home cook, you don't always have all of the little gadgets and tools that you see on television. Now, that's not to say that over time you won't, but you may not start out that way. So I know I didn't. I didn't have all the goodies. So I had to learn how to do it the hard way. And back in the day, when our parents were, some of our parents, my parent was in, because of my age, was when they were coming up, they didn't have all those mixers and all that stuff. They did everything by hand. And I can remember watching one of my aunts make this. She made the best sour cream pound cake, and not one mixer was used. Not even a little hand blender was used. She whipped that cake, and she had it down to a science. She knew how many times she needed to stir that cake in order for it to come out light and delicious. And it never failed, never failed. It was always good. All right, it's our last addition of our flour. And I think she was like into the hundreds that she would just whip that cake with that spoon, but she did use a wooden spoon. And she beat that cake, and I mean, wow, it was amazing. Okay, so we're getting all of this together. And as soon as we get all of this pretty well blended, then we're going to add in, I'm going to add in pecans because that's what the big guy likes. And that's what I like too. And so we're going to put pecans in, but do you have to? No. You don't have to. And you could certainly use this and make muffins for breakfast. You could do all of that. But because I'm going to, like I said, I'm going to have one loaf that I'm going to eat. And then the other loaf, we're going to freeze. So this is all together, no flour. So I'm going to start with, I'm using a little half cup measure, and I'm only measuring just for your sake, because you know, normally I would just throw it in. All right, so that's a half cup. And these are pre-stirred pecans. I tell you what, I have come to the decision that they are the best pecans ever. And you can get them online, priester.com. And but they are better than any pecan that you can get in the grocery store, because most of the time those in the grocery store are a little dry, and you want the essence and the oils of that pecan because that's healthy. So we've got 1.5 cups, 2 cups. All right, so we got 2 cups of pecans. I'm going to see what that looks like once I get it stirred, and then we're going to be ready to bake the first loaf. And I'm going to let that bake while we're cooking. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Now, if it were left up to the big guy, he'd add probably another cup in, but I think this is enough, okay? Now, I have my loaf dish, and I'm using glass. And keep this in mind, when you're using glass, that you want to cut back the heat about 25 degrees when you're warming up your oven, because glass will stick, for one thing, and you're looking at the temperature of it, and glass is going to cook pretty fast. So you don't want to burn up what it is that you're preparing. Now, what I did, once I softened up my butter this morning, because yes, I forgot to take the butter out, I'm taking my wrappers and using the wrappers to go around my dish. So I've got all of that nice and oiled. Didn't have to use any oil spray, but let me wash my hands because now my hands are oily. Okay, I hope you guys are having fun today. This really has been a fun day. And I think the fun of it was the fact that I was able to get ready for you, and you're coming. And also, I get to watch Denise cooking over there in her kitchen. So that was certainly a lot of fun. All right, so we have this in. I'm going to start to add it to the dish. And I fill mine at least 3/4 of the way up. I want a full loaf. And if you go over just a little bit, it's okay, but you don't want it to go over in your oven. So I usually try to put some kind of pan underneath. So just in case it decides to bubble over, and just take your spatula, or you can take a knife and just kind of go in and out, in and out, in and out. And that's to make sure that there are no air pockets down under there that will interfere with your bread, because when you cut into this bread, you want it perfect. So here we go. Now this is what I'm going to do on mine. I'm going to take, I'm rinsing my fingers real quick, and I'm going to take just a few of those pecans, just a few, a handful, And like I said, this is up to you, but I'm going to sprinkle a few, sprinkle some on top. Now, I keep my pecans in the freezer because, you know, nuts can go bad and go rancid. And so I like to have those in the freezer where I can just pop them out. So my nuts are quite cold, but it doesn't interfere with what we're doing. So that's a good thing. So, all right, this baby is ready to go into the oven. So I'm gonna get this in the oven, and then we're gonna do something that you're gonna enjoy. All right, I got my pan in place. I'm gonna put this in the middle of the oven. And our oven is already preheated to the 350. I've got enough here left for another loaf that we will, like I said, we're gonna eat one and we're gonna bake one and freeze it. So I'm gonna zip up these nuts, get them back into their bag where they go. I'm gonna put them back in the freezer, and I'm going to move most of this. I think I'm gonna leave one spatula out because I know I'll need it for the next loaf. Hopefully you guys are having a great time and got your coffee. I got my coffee this morning. Look at, I'm coordinated. Got my orange pumpkin mug with some pumpkin spice in it. Oh, that's good. All right, now, you know, we talked about freezer meals, and I have here for you, I'm gonna bring you down just a little bit. Let's see if I can do this without making a total mess. There we go. That way I can actually read. How about that? All right, I got you in here. I have some white beans that I soaked. And these white beans have been soaked, and I haven't put anything on them up until today. And I added in a teaspoon of pepper, and I have some, no salt, keep that in mind, no salt. I'm going to add in some garlic powder, because, you know, everything's good with a little bit of garlic. And we're gonna, well, he doesn't want to come off of there this morning. Come off, because we're gonna need it over there too. Okay, there we go. So I'm going to use my, well, this is a tablespoon, so we're only going to use a portion of this. And we're going to sprinkle in a little garlic powder. Now, it's better to use less at this point because we can always add more. So I've got the beans, I've got the garlic powder, I've got the pepper. I'm going to add some onion powder. And I'm using onion powder because I have a few in my family who are a little funny about when they see onion, then they think it's got to be bad. So I don't want them to see it, so we're going to use onion powder. So I'm using about a teaspoon of onion powder. And like I said, you can always add more. Now, I'm also going to add in this bag some mixed vegetables, because this is going to be a vegetable bean soup that you will be able to put in your freezer first. And when you're ready to prepare it, you can either put it in a slow cooker if you need to go and do something else, or you can even put it on the stove and just let it simmer several hours. Now, so we've got beans, we've got the seasonings, we've got the vegetables. Now, this is what we need. You're going to need 2 cans of diced tomatoes, and these diced tomatoes have onion, celery, and green pepper. And I'm going to pour those 2 cans in. There we go. There's can 1. And here's can 2. Now, I've got all of those together. Now, what I like to do is to hold off adding like the chicken broth in or vegetable broth, whatever you decide that you want. So I have it labeled for my vegetable bean soup. I've got my tomatoes and all those good things in there. So the only thing I will need to add is going to be like a can or 2, depending upon how soupy you like it, because you know beans are going to take up a lot of liquid. So I would say you probably I prepare 4 quarts or 4 cups of broth, and but I only add maybe half of that in, maybe 2 quarts in to the crock pot. Let that simmer several hours. Look at it, and if you think it needs more liquid, then you can always add more liquid because the tomatoes are going to break down. So now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to lay this down, get it down, get everything in there, and make sure I kind of roll mine up to make sure that I have all as much of the oxygen and the air out as possible, and zip him up. So this is my vegetable bean soup ready for my crock pot, and I'm going to be preparing that soup. Now, I like to serve this with cornbread, and I'm looking at these spices that I have here open. I was about to put the top on it, but we're going to need them in just a minute. So I'm going to carry them over there. So I'm just going to stick this in the freezer very quickly, and then we'll be ready to move over to the stove. All righty, how are you guys doing? Oh, Denise, you have some pumpkin spice? Oh, I know. I love the smell of the pumpkin spice. Oh, so you puree your onions and your green peppers when the kids were little? Okay. And some of them didn't like pickles, anything green. Well, you know, I have to admit, I was one of those kids myself. If I could see it and it just didn't look quite right, it did not go into my mouth. So I've got the pot here on the stove. Now we're going to be putting together a nice chicken corn chowder. And while Denise was cooking, I prepared 2 pieces of bacon. The bacon's for 2 reasons. I needed a little bit of bacon grease down here in the bottom. Now, if you're vegan, then just use some olive oil. But I like having the bacon grease in there, and it's only about a tablespoon. Now, in my blender, this is my Ninja, I am making my cream style corn that is going to be going into this chowder. And I have in here some milk, enough milk to cover the corn. And that's all I did. I just put the corn in there. I got enough milk to cover it. I threw in a couple of tablespoons of flour, and I'm going to blend that. And it may be just a little noisy, but that's okay. Okay, so we are ready. Woo-hoo. So I did that twice because you need about 4 cups of corn. So we've got enough corn. So we have our own homemade cream style corn. So homemakers and home cooks, if you think you look in your cabinet and you don't see any cream style corn for your chowder, get some frozen corn and blend it up. So there's all of our cream style corn. All we did was to, I got some frozen corn on sale at Kroger for one of those 10 for 10. And it only took actually 3 of the bags. And this is what the little bag looked like. It was one of those little small. This is the Bird's Eye little steamers. And it's called super sweet corn. We like that. And so in here, the first thing I'm going to do is to add just a smidget of onion, because you know I like onion. So I have some onion already chopped, so I'm going to put that in there. Get all that out of there because I'm going to need that. But I'm not using a lot because I don't want anyone to look at it and go, I'm not sure if I like that. All right, so I'm going to turn the heat up just a little bit so our onion can start to come together. Now, over here, like I said, I have quite a mess today. Over here, I have my bullet, and I'm kind of getting some of that bullet stuff out of the way. I also have some homemade chicken broth. And let's see if I can get you just a little bit closer. I think I can. So you can see, there you go. You can see the chicken broth. And I also have a container of chicken. So here's my container with the chicken. I purposely left the chicken fat because the chicken fat is going to be necessary for our dish. Now, let me tell you what this is. When I made my broth, I had my whole chicken. And in fact, as time would allow, I actually ended up with 2 whole chickens and that I was using because we had some company this week. So I fixed a chicken dish for one family and another chicken dish for another. And I saved all the back and the bony parts. And I took the bone out of the thigh, took the bone out of the leg, and I threw all of that into a crock pot with some onions and all those goodies and made my own broth. And then when it was done, I picked through all of that once I strained it and got the chicken. So this is enough chicken because it's 2 bags rather than 1. So I was able to have more than enough chicken for this. And in fact, I used a little bit of this chicken the other day in the Big Guy's chicken noodle soup. So we've got chicken, we've got broth, and I'm keeping another container of broth here just in case. So I've turned the heat up so it will go ahead and get to boiling here. And we're going to add in our 4 cups of cream style corn. 4 cups of cream style corn that I'm putting in. Now you're not going to want to lose any of this because it's going to be good. Now, I'm also thinking this is going to be an awful lot just for the Big Guy and myself. So it leaves me the option, when you're making soups, you want to make sure that you're making enough that you can eat some today and put some away for tomorrow. And that's exactly what I'm going to do. So I'm going to get this nice and hot. So that's going to take a minute. And let me peek at our bread, see how it's doing. Oh, yeah. It smells wonderful when you open that oven. All right, we don't want to do that too often. Now, I don't think I'm going to need any additional broth. Now, this is the milk. I kept it handy just in case. But I also have half and half because we're going to add the half and half at the end because we want it to be nice and creamy. Now I have just a little bit of potato flake because the big guy doesn't like chunks of potatoes, not even little ones, in his corn chowder. So I'm adding in a 1/4 cup of potato flakes. And that's going to add the thickening that you want, in addition to the flour that you put in for your cream style corn. But you'll have the texture of the potato, and this is going to be hearty. Now I have plans for, actually I'll show you. The other day I had guests and I made a bowl of bread. So I still have a half a bowl left because I sliced half. So we've got fresh bread that I'll probably put a little butter, a little garlic, and toast it up. And we're going to dip it into our soup. So I think that's going to be pretty good. You could certainly serve it with some cornbread. You could use crackers, your favorite cracker, and you could have added all of this into a crock pot and let it continue to cook. But like I said, you do not want to add the half and half until the end because you don't want that cream to break. So I'm giving this a good stir, and I'm going to stir it for a little while because I turned the heat up and I don't want it to stick on the bottom. Now, while that's doing that, I'm going to add in some additional seasonings. So let me get my spoon and give it a taste. Okay, now I want a little salt. I think it needs a little salt. Oh, one more thing. I saved some of the regular whole kernel corn, about half a bag, and I'm going to go ahead and add that in. Now, if you want to add an entire bag to your soup, you could certainly do that. It just tells everybody what you got, and because they'll see the corn. And there we go. There we go. But because we've got milk, we've got the cream style corn, and it is the nice sweet corn, you know, it has that tendency where it could stick, but we're not going to let it do that because we're going to be right here. Now, I'm going to get my guess I should have brought several spoons over. I'll just grab a hand. We'll take care of that. I'm going to put in about a half teaspoon of salt and give that a stir. Now, once it starts to bubble, then you're going to want to cut it back because it will pop, and you don't want it to pop all over your stove. So we have to kind of keep an eye on it once it starts to jiggle. All right, so that's about a teaspoon. And I don't have any white pepper. If I were doing this for really highfalutin guests, then I'd probably purchase some white pepper. But today, I'm just using regular black pepper. I'm putting in a teaspoon of pepper. And you could certainly add in some red pepper flakes if you like the spice. You might even add in some jalapenos if you like that jalapeno taste and like the kick of the jalapeno. You could certainly add jalapeno. Now, I'm going to serve jalapeno on the side. And the reason for that is because I'm a little nervous with jalapeno because, you know, you'll get one and it'll be pretty mild. And the next one you get might set your mouth on fire. So I let everyone add their own jalapeno to their dish. So they'll be chopped up and on the side ready to go. Okay. Yeah. So this has got to cook just a moment. So let's see how we're doing here. Are we doing oh, we're doing good on time. Oh yeah, our dish is coming along. Now, we've got to keep an eye on this though, because it will start to make a mess. And I'm thinking it's going to, before it makes that mess, we've got to make sure that we are, and you want to take your wooden spoon and really go to the very bottom of your pot, because that's where you're going to have the problem, on the bottom. And you don't want any of this to stick. I mean, you've seen corn when it's come in contact with heat just a little too much. I know it's getting hot because I can start to see little teeny tiny bubbles, but it's not where I want it. Now, to be honest with you, for dinner, I'm not going to probably serve it immediately. I'll probably take this, put it into the refrigerator, let it sit for a while, several hours, and then just bring out what I want, warm it up, because the longer it sits, the better it tastes. You want those flavors to go through it. Now, what we didn't put in here was the garlic and the onion powder. So I'm going to sprinkle in a little bit of garlic. You know, I like garlic, so I'm okay with that. I'm going to put in a little bit of onion powder just to kick up the onion flavor. Okay, and give all of this a good stir. If you wanted to kick up the color, you could certainly add in some paprika. You know, those are things that you could add into this. And I tried to make sure when I was making my broth that the broth wasn't too salty, because we definitely don't want it too salty. We want it to be good, but we do not want it to be overly salted. And there's butter in here, and I use salted butter most of the time. So I knew there would be salt in the butter, and so all of that needs to come together. So very quickly, I'll put those over there. I'm going to take this because I don't think I'm going to need any more broth. So I'm going to take this and just sit it in the fridge. And of course, if we need it, I can always pull it out. So there we go. I'm just giving this a good stir. So I can smell the garlic. I can smell the corn. And you can see how, let me bring it down. You can see how thick and hearty it is. Let me get you down where there we go, where you can really see. And we're going to let this cook. Let it simmer. Now, if you guys weren't here watching, I'd probably put a top on it for about 10 minutes just to help it come up to temperature quicker. But, you know, a watch pot never boils. So we're gonna do that. Now, what I'm gonna do is to go ahead and measure out the cream that we're gonna need. So I'm gonna give this a good shake. Always shake it up. And I'm gonna start with a half cup. Now, some people like to add a pinch of nutmeg into their soup, but I'm okay with that, but I'm not going to do that today, because I did that once before, and the big guy kind of gave me the eye. He said, "What did you add in there?" And I told him, I said, "Oh, I did a little shake of nutmeg." And he just kind of went, So we're not going to put the nutmeg in. Now I'm starting to feel the bottom, so I know that heat is coming where I want it. And I see lots and lots of little bubbles. Now I think while this is continuing to heat up, let me turn you up so I can see you and start to talk. Okay, let's see. Ronnie says that her grandmother is the same way. If she sees anything with color, she questions it. Absolutely. You know, little ones do that. Emma said that she's made 2 different soups for dinner last night and managed to put 2 portions of each in the freezer. Woohoo! For another time. You know, this is soup time. It is time to get those soups into your freezer. This is it. This is the time. Denise is saying that she pureed. Oh, this is where she was telling us that she purees her onions and green peppers, and so that the kids wouldn't see anything when they were looking. I know. Hello, Deb. Okay, I got some bananas that were pretty ripe at the store this week, and they are ready for bread baking. Woohoo! That bread, I tell you, the bread is going to be delicious. Denise says she's sending her hubby out to get some bananas so she can make some bread. Sue said her grandmother was like that too. No electric mixer, no measuring utensils. I love it. Now, guys, let me turn you down so you can see, because some just splattered on me. If you can see, move that spoon out of the way, you can see it's getting nice and bubbly. So I've got to make sure that I take my wooden spoon and go across the bottom, because I don't want any of this to stick. I want it to cook, but we do not want it to stick. So it's getting nice and hot. And as it gets hot, it's going to thicken up even more. So you may find if it's a little too thick for you, then all you have to do is to add some broth. Add some broth. Because the purpose of the cream, the half and half, is just to add a little more creaminess to your soup. Not so much that you want to use it as a way to liquefy it. Oh yeah, I can feel how it's thickening up, and I like a hearty soup. Yummy. Now I'm probably going to add about a cup more of broth, just because I know the big guy likes his a little soupier rather than more like a stew. Okay, so I'm going to pull that broth back out. And we're going to add about a cup of, let me see if I have a cup down here. Yes, I do. We're going to take it out. And I'm going to add just a little bit of broth. This is homemade broth. And I'm going to pour it over my sink just to stay safe. Like I said, I did not worry about the chicken fat, because that's flavor today. So I am stirring. I'm going to add this in. Oh yeah, that improved the texture immediately. And it is bubbling. So I'm bring it back so you can see that loosened it up just enough. There you go. There we are. Now, so it is really bubbling at this point. So we have an entire pot of chicken corn chowder. Oh man. Give that a minute. Let me peek at our bread, because it smells good. And you know, your bread is almost ready when you're starting to smell it. That's your indicator. Your nose is your indicator. Now, we put the top back on that stock. There we go. And keep stirring. This is one of those you can't walk away from, especially since we're doing it on the stove. And if you were going to do it in your crock pot, you'd have to check it and make sure that you do it on low, because if you do it on high, you need to be somewhere close. And I tried that, and I ended up with it sticking to the sides of the crock pot. So I'm just letting you know from my kitchen conundrums that even with a crock pot, you have to be cautious with what your heat settings are going to be, depending upon what you're doing. Okay, this is going to be so good. I'm going to take my spoon so I can taste and make sure that the seasoning's good. Oh man, it has just enough saltiness. It has just enough, a hint of sweetness because of the sweet corn. Didn't add any sugar. And probably the big guy is going to add just a tad more salt. And if you made your broth with better than bouillon, let me show you better than bouillon. If you made yours with better than bouillon, now this one happens to be the vegetarian for a vegetable base, but sometimes in closer to Thanksgiving, I will get the one that says turkey, and you get a nice turkey flavoring. But when you have better than bouillon, sometimes it's a little salty. And certainly if you use the little bouillon cubes or the powder, it's going to definitely be saltier. So you have to just put a little bit at a time, taste it, and then see if you need more. Oh, guys, this is coming together quickly. It doesn't take long for this corn chowder to come together. Now, the nice thing about this, I thought about Mickey today. Mickey Blue Skies that comes on, Denise's sister, because she's vegan. And certainly you could do, well, I don't know if she's vegan or she's just a vegetarian. So she could use a vegan butter. She could use, leave the chicken out. She could use a vegetable base versus using a chicken base for her broth, or a chicken broth. You can buy that now in the store already put together. And so you could certainly use that instead and just leave the meat out. But I like the protein. I like what the chicken adds to the chowder. And if I were just doing a corn, she could add real potatoes, use Idaho potatoes because they have more starch, and cube up those Idaho potatoes and put in rather than the meat. And that will help to make the soup hearty, and all of that will come together. Now, there's enough vegan products out there that I think if you use enough corn, you know, cream your corn, you can use either an oatmeal milk or a almond milk, and you could use that in your cream style corn, and then that way you have all of that ready. And all of that can certainly come together. So now that I'm thinking about it, I think when I get off and I'm adding to what's in the description box, I'm going to add in both a meat version with the chicken as well as a meat-free version for those who may want to do it without meat, because sometimes I do it without meat. But for this one, I wanted some meat. Now, we are just about at that point where I can add the cream. And I'm going to turn the heat down because I do not want the cream to break. So, oh yeah. Oh yeah. This is going to be really good. Now, I'm going to take this. We're starting with a half cup. Of course, part of that ended up on the stove. Let me wipe that up before I have a real mess. And I got the giggles as I was watching Denise, and I'm sure she does the same thing when she's watching me. You know, it's kind of a Julia Childs. You know, Julia Childs could have a moment in the kitchen. She dropped something or she spilled something, and she would go, oh! and just keep right on going. And so that's exactly what we're doing this morning, because we had a lot we wanted to share with you, and we didn't want anything to interfere. So that's why we've got our sink full of soapy water, so we could just throw things into that sink. And you know, I'm a proponent of wash as you go, and get those dishes going and clean those pots and pans as you're going. But this is one of those dishes that you can't turn your head. You've got to make sure that you're right here with it, because I don't want it to stick. And you notice I'm using a cast iron pot, and it is doing a great job. So I'm going to put that there. It's nice and hot. Let me get a toothpick so we can test our bread. Yeah, I actually like a little parsley in my soup, but I think I'll hold off on the parsley, because the parsley is kind of like the green peppers. You know, they'll see those little dark spots, and then all of a sudden they won't want to eat it. Now, this is one of the bottles that has that little top, and I've got my toothpicks in there. So I can just turn it over and get a couple of toothpicks out. Voila. Put the top on it. It keeps my toothpicks clean. I'll stick that in the basket so it'll be easy to clean up. Let's see, how are we doing? Oh, it looks really good. I think it needs just a few more minutes. We've got just enough time, guys. So I am going to, this is ready. It is ready. It's creamy and delicious. So I've got a cup ready to be able to put some in my cup. And on Saturday, I always do brunch. And I do that purposely because it's right after the show, and I can call the big guy into the kitchen and to the table, or whomever else is here with us, just depends on the day, and they can come in and have brunch. And that's always nice. So I've got some now that the cream is in it. Ooh. Nice and hot. Ooh, hot. But oh my goodness, it is delicious. Here we go. Oh, he's gonna like this. With the toasted bread. It's gonna be so good. Oh, that's gonna be good. Now, I'm gonna cut this down on low because I'm gonna let it simmer. I'm gonna give it probably on low. I'll probably give it about another 15 minutes or so. So just so that it can, I'm sure, even though it tastes perfect, but we want it to just have a chance to get happy in there. And you know the bacon that we had, I'm gonna crumble this up. And when I serve it to the big guy, I'm gonna put some little pieces of bacon on top. So I'm just gonna crumble this. You know, we got chicken, so we might as well have a little bit of bacon. Since we have it, I'll crumble that and get all that ready so we can put it. If you like spring onions, you can certainly add a little bit of spring onions on top. And so I'm just taking this and breaking it up. There we go. Little piece for me. Okay, so our bacon's ready for the big guy. Lost one. I'm gonna sit this off to the side and wipe my hands just a moment, because guess what? We're about to test our bread. So I'm going to get my mitts out. And we are going to, it's still, I can tell it still needs to brown just a little bit, but it appears that it may be just about ready. Oh, it's actually coming out quite clean. So I'm going to give it about just a few minutes, long enough for that top to brown a little more solidly. And it just needs to get a little more golden. What is it? Ming Sai says golden. You want it to be golden brown and delicious. Well, that's what we want. So this is bubbling. That's a good thing. And I'm going to take you guys over here so we can sit. I can see what everybody's talking about. And whoo, Denise, I almost did it. Oh, let's see. Some pumpkin spice coffee would be awfully good with those bananas. Let's see, let's go down. Okay, we got Emma and the chicken stock. I actually put the chicken in. And I did it like in the morning and put enough water over it to cover it. And then I just let it go, but pretty much for the rest of the day until time for dinner. And then, which was about 5 o'clock. So say I did a good 6 to 8 hours, and making sure that it was nice and done. I wanted the broth to be perfect. Now, I could have taken chicken breast. You could do the same thing. Take 3 chicken breasts, put it into the crock pot, put the water in it, season it up if you want. But I like to season mine when I'm doing the cooking. So I try not to put a lot of seasonings into the broth because I want to make sure that when I use it in a recipe that I can add whatever I need to add for the recipe and it's still good. Ronnie said the bacon is the icing on the cake. Oh, thank you. That chicken corn chowder is going to be delicious. It's going to be delicious. And the bacon on top, it is going to be wonderful. Sierra, she says that she likes sprinkling the bacon on top opposed to having the whole pieces to save money. You are absolutely right. You notice I only fixed 2 slices of bacon, where normally I probably, in the morning on a Saturday morning, I do the whole pound of bacon, but I don't need but 2 slices for this. And I only want to use 2 to sprinkle on top because it's just a little taste, not really the recipe. That's something to keep in mind. AJ, hi. AJ says she found your channel today. Mwah, glad to see you. Oh, you are so sweet. And I'm so glad that you're here. We are here every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock. And we're always cooking it up. But today was special because we went from Denise's channel and this and that over to Ebony, Ivy, and Time, which has been 2 hours of fun, absolute fun. When I was adding the spices for the bean soup to the bag, I said no salt. That's absolutely right. Is there a cooking reason? Yes. When you have beans, you do not want to add salt while they're cooking because what that does is that it toughens the beans. And I like for the beans to be very soft and easy to chew. But when you add salt too early, you can add it just before, you know, kind of at the end, put your salt in, stir it up, and then you're ready to serve. But don't add the salt in at the beginning because it will definitely toughen those beans. Oh, that's sweet. Thank you, Ronnie. I appreciate that. Double trouble. Yes, we are. We're the cooking divas. And you know what? We've got plans for more. Now, you know we can't do it every week, guys, but there's more coming because, you know, the holidays are coming and we need to get ready for the holidays. And it is just about that time. Now, I'm going to see if we can pull the bread out before you leave. And I'm going to give you another close-up peek at the chowder because it is just simmering away. I'm going to give it a nice stir right here. There we go. And I have it on the lowest setting on my stove because, like I said, I do not want the cream to break. So I have to be very careful when I warm it up, is that I warm it, but I have to do it gently. Now let's get in this oven because I'm telling you, this bread smells amazing. Shouldn't take but a second. Oh, it is ready. Woo-hoo. Oh my goodness. Oh, guys. It's ready. Woo. Oh my goodness. Now, because this is in glass and actually even in your Teflon pans or whatever it may be, you will want to let your baked goods sit for about 10 minutes so that it will pull away from the sides. Then I'm going to flip this out and put it on a rack so it can cool. Now, you know, I'm going to add some pictures and all kinds of good stuff into the community page. So don't miss that. So, I hope all of you have had your cups of coffee or tea, and maybe even you had some breakfast along the way so that you could take a moment and watch while you did what you're doing for your Saturday morning. Because if you came to me first, then go back and watch Denise. And for those of you who came from Denise's channel, to all of you, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, give me a thumbs up before you leave, and have a blessed and wonderful Saturday, because we're cooking in the kitchen, and you know, this is where we are on Saturday at 10 o'clock. So get ready to go. It's going to be fun. Yes, I love Denise too. She's wonderful. All right. See you guys. Have fun. Have a great Saturday.